If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kaioshin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips.
Chapter 217 to 219. On May 7th, the day of the tournament finally arrived. Except for Yamcha, who had to take care of his children. Ten Shinhan and Chaos, who were continuing their training in hermit mode, and C-16 and C-17, who had stayed in the urbanization to control the situation. Everyone else had gathered on Papaya Island to participate in or observe the World Martial Arts Tournament. And since everyone had had contact for the last 6 years due to Broly's barbecues, that many worked in the same place, that Broly had brought the information age to the planet through Capsule Corp, that Goku hadn't died, and the Saiyan families made their children play with each other because they feared that with their super strength they would accidentally kill normal children. It wasn't necessary to make an epic reunion, so everyone went straight to sign up, drawing undue attention in the process and watching the child matches. Matches that Broly rigged for Goten and Vegeta Jr., this pairing was Vegeta's request, fight in one of the semifinals, and for Bra and Zingiber, the daughter of Ginger and Rashi, to fight in the other semifinal. In fact, one of the matches had already ended. And the winner of this incredible fight has been Vegeta Jr. Woof. This has been the best match I have seen in over a decade. I hope all the World Martial Arts Tournament will be like this again. It is a pity that all our cameras have been damaged and we haven't been able to record this great fight, said the famous referee and announcer of this series, we still don't know his name, that was living with great emotion the resurgence of the World Martial Arts Tournament of yesteryear, where supernatural beings with powers beyond the human condition fought each other. Clash. Combats where absolutely anything could happen. Like for example, that from the stands a huge, muscular guy with a third eye and an ape's tail hit the head to a green alien with snail antennae. Shake my head. Why the hell did he do that to me? It hurts much. Piccolo protested against Broly's unjustified and painful attack. His head hurts so much that he even had a hard time remembering things he did yesterday. I have never raised you to destroy private property like this, Piccolo. Poor cameras. Said Broly, excusing his surprise attack into something akin to youth vandalism. Something that earned Piccolo's energetic and deserved protest, you never raised me. In addition, you have manipulated the election process so that the kids could fight together in the semi-finals. You have no right to criticize me. They did what? Videl yelled, very upset by what she had just seen and heard. The more she knew about Gohan's strange group, the more surprised and scared she became. But she especially less understood. Nothing, Videl, they haven't done anything. Gohan said quickly, trying in every possible way since he introduced her to pretend some kind of conventional normality. Too bad, Kakaroto. Looks as though my son comes from better stock, Yem said with great pride upon seeing that his family had finally won something over Goku's for the first time in the history of this novel. And not only that, Kakaroto. This is a premonitory combat of what will happen between us, Vegeta said with 200% pride, seeing that the exact copy of him had defeated the exact copy of his rival. He couldn't wait for history to repeat itself. Yeah. Goku replied without giving much importance to anything. On the other hand, Ginger and Mutant Rashi weren't happy at all, unlike the rest of the cast. And now it's my little treasure's turn. I am so worried. They were extremely worried, and the origin of that worry seemed to be the next match. The fight in which their precious daughter Zingiber fought against. Tell me, Gohan. Bra is, like her father. She doesn't have a third eye, it's obvious, but, you know, she has a tail. And his genes, Piccolo whispered worriedly to Gohan as he saw Rashi and Ginger's worrying reaction. They were so worried that they even started praying to Den to protect their daughter. Fuck. If their last hope was pray to the weak god of planet Earth, they must be very desperate. Okay. Let's say. She is the perfect combination of her two parents, although luckily her S-cells aren't as mutant as Broly's, Gohan replied, trying to reassure his friends but lying to them. An answer that didn't reassure them too much. However, it was better than what they would hear next. Ha 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 ha. Don't worry, I have instructed her so that things don't get out of hand. She won't devour a solar system like I did at her age or something like that. Or she will be punished. Said Broly, trying to relax the atmosphere by promising that he had forbidden his daughter to create the apocalypse from a fight between children. But. One moment. If he had forbidden it. That meant. Was she capable of doing it? Oh shit. Almost everyone answered at the same time, except Rashi and Ginger, who already knew about Bra's strength, since both daughters were super friends, reflecting on their faces a great terror. The terror of knowing that a second Broly had been born. Although the person who seemed most affected was Videl, who for the umpteenth time that day her world fell into the toilet. What? Devour a galaxy. Is this a joke, right Gohan? That had to be a joke, a silly, exaggerated and disgusting joke. However, guys. Why are you so pale? It's a joke, right? However, while some uninformed adults tried to assimilate that another weapon of mass destruction was between them and Gohan tried to convince Videl that all of this was a joke. The fight between Bra and Zinjibur had been announced by our dear referee, and both looked at each other and chatted before starting to hit each other. Bra. Please don't overdo. We are best friends, have some mercy, said Zinjibur, who had lost all hope of victory from the beginning and she just wanted not to be humiliated in front of everyone. Don't worry, it will be quick and painless. Well, almost painless. I have to save energy to fight your cousin. My dad has promised me a reward if I humiliate him a little, you know how. Hee hee hee. Bra replied as she cracked her knuckles, showing by her facial and body expression that she wouldn't be overly merciful to anyone. Something that worried Zinjibur, and rightly so, who added more conditions to his surrender. Don't go overboard with him please. And don't hit me on the head, I'm studying. Okay, don't worry, Bra replied, who lowered her fists and stopped showing so much hostility and bad intentions towards her best friend. A friend who regained hope in life and half-human beings. Thank you very much Bra, you know, you always. Pum. Crash. However, instantly Bra teleported in front of her and with a single punch to the face sent her flying towards the stands. Never get distracted in combat. Especially when it hasn't even started, Bra said as she posed victoriously like a Joestar, repeating verbatim one of the great lessons from her father that she learned in the same way that Zinjibur had just learned now. Wow, this has been faster than I expected. The winner of this match is Bra. The announcer said with enthusiasm upon seeing that there were more monsters children, something that would guarantee the future of this competition. Although, unlike him, everyone was concerned in their own way to see that a 6-year-old girl could be very hurt. Zinjibur. I'm coming, hold on. Shouted Rashi, who went to help his precious daughter who was still stretched out among the rubble of the stands. Yuish, that had to hurt. Goku and the others said upon seeing this humiliating defeat and powerful punch that will surely leave some kind of temporary sequel. Gohan. Gohan. We have to call a ambulance. That poor girl. Videl said, terrified upon seeing what had just happened and its possible consequences. She really believed that that poor creature could have died at the hands of that monster in the form of a girl. And for the umpteenth time that day Gohan tried to reassure her, calm Videl. Surely nothing has happened to Zinjibur. Right bro? Although. Perfectly done Bra. In her fucking FA. Broly said like a violent hooligan who asked for blood and guts, until he realized that everyone, especially Gohan, looked at him with some hostility, more than normal. This. I mean. Bra. Too bad, you shouldn't hit your friends so hard. I've never taught you that. Don't listen to me, Dad is proud of you, Broly said telepathically to his daughter so that she wouldn't be confused with contradictory messages. And after a few minutes in which Zinjibur was treated, who had only suffered a small hematoma, minimally repaired the stands and reassured the audience. The competition continued. Then we move on to the final. Vegeta Jr. vs. Bra, the announcer said as he pointed to the young participants to come at the ring. No hard feelings, right Vegeta? Bra said as she offered her hand to Vegeta Jr. in an act of apparent sportsmanship. Yes. No hard feelings. Vegeta replied, without shaking her hand, just in case. And while the two opponents talked about that and the other, the referee began to announce what could be the best final in the history of this tournament so far, despite the fact that the participants were elementary school children. It's time for the Junior Division final round. Will the victor be Vegeta Jr. Kun? Or will it be Bra-chan? Both contestants have fought their way here with overpowering strength. And what's more, both of them are good friends. Yes. Very good friends. Hee hee hee. Bra said as she pounded her knuckles and laughed in an incredibly suspicious and malevolent way as she carefully observed Vegeta Jr., who seemed unfazed. We would now like to present the World Martial Arts Tournament Junior Division Final. Ready. Go. The announcer shouted to start the best final in this tournament history. A final in which two little children would flying, show an unusual martial ability and physical qualities, using magical skills and divine abilities that go beyond the most crazy imagination. A final that would be engraved on the retina of all the spectators. A final that would break the limits of the world in which the audience believed they lived and would open their minds to new possibilities. In a nutshell. An event that would make history. No. The event that will completely change the history. I give up, Vegeta Jr. said as he came down from the stage. Or that was the idea. What? The announcer yelled in disappointment upon seeing that one of his greatest illusions had been shattered. What? The public yelled in disappointment due to having paid to attend a final that wouldn't be held. But above all. Act? Why do you surrender? Coward. Bra yelled in great indignation as she pointed accusingly at Vegeta Jr. and kicked the ground furiously. You were thinking of lowering my pants in public, right? Thanks, but I have a reputation to uphold. I prefer to allege that I was injured from the previous fight and that is why I have surrendered instead of losing uselessly in a humiliating way, said Vegeta Jr. as he left the ring with elegance. What? How did you know? Can you read minds like my dad too? Bra asked, very shocked to see that her infallible and original plan had been discovered. No, my cousin told me that you were planning something, and knowing you, I knew you would try something like that. Better luck next time, although I don't know why you always have to lower my pants. Pervert. Vegeta Jr. replied, before leaving the stadium to go eat his sandwich. Damn Zinjibur. You have betrayed me. Bra yelled as she pointed accusingly at Zinjibur, who was in the stands along with Goten and Chi-Chi, Bulma and other combatants with an ice pack on her cheek. You hit me very hard. And in the face. You deserve it. Zinjibur yelled with great rancor and satisfaction seeing that her revenge had been successful, in some way. I'm going to. Bra yelled with her fist raised as she swore revenge. And while, among the Z warriors there were certain complaints and doubts regarding the combat of the century, as well as in the entire stadium. Give up. What are you doing, Vegeta 5th? Vegeta yelled, outraged to see that his son had given up before even fighting. What happened here? Hasn't your son inherited your stupid and convenient pride? Shouted Broly, outraged to see that Bra hadn't been able to defeat Vegeta's son in a humiliating way. And for the first time, although for different reasons, something magical happened. Vegeta and Broly agreed on something. However, Yam wasn't at all upset, rather she was proud of her little one's decision. If I have learned something over the years thanks to you, it is that a withdrawal on time can also be considered a victory. That is what I have taught to my little Vegeta Jr. Fuck. Broly protested with great indignation and sadness. Certainly, from the expression of both it seems that Vegeta Jr. has been the victor. You can be proud Vegeta, you have finally won Broly, even through your son and through a surrender, Piccolo thought with great happiness, rarely could something like this happen and when this happens it should be enjoyed to the fullest. But while our heroes argued the rest of the world kept moving. That surrender has been something unforeseen and anticlimactic. But the junior division has a champion. And now, following such a tense match, it's time for a delightful attraction. We will now have Brachan, the winner of the junior division, take on the world champion, Mr. Satan. Said the announcer, announcing a small bonus as a reward for the junior winner. Have the opportunity to greet the world champion. That was surely the dream of every child who practiced martial arts. Although for the champion in question, this would surely be the greatest of his nightmares. Although because he couldn't see the previous fights and there was no fight in this final, he didn't know what he was facing. So the winner of this edition is an adorable little girl. She reminds me of Videl when she was young. This will help me be even softer. I wouldn't want to harm a toddler, said Mr. Satan with the great confidence that characterized him as he advanced towards the ring while the entire state applauded and cheered his entrance. Mr. Satan. Mr. Satan. World Champion. Mr. Satan. Mr. Satan. And as expected, he continued to play his character with great enthusiasm to motivate the public, WHH. Now who is this youngster who challenges the world champion, Mr. Satan? It's you, then. I hope you're ready. Whoa. Satan. 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 However, not all the public was equally motivated. Well, how about we start getting back? I think the preliminaries should be over by now, said Krillin, who had no interest in seeing a 999% assured defeat. You're right, let's go see. Said Goku, who wanted to arrive as soon as possible to gorge himself on the restaurant before starting the fights. An unusual decision that once again shocked the new member of the group. Hold down. That child down there is one of you, right? He's about to fight Mr. Satan. Aren't you going to watch that first? said Vidal, who didn't understand if these people were bastards who didn't care about which would surely be the most important fight of that child, or were insulting her father. Yeah, we are. You never know, it may turn out to be a good match, Gohan said, almost begging his friends to act more or less like normal people in this situation. Well, we'll see you later then, said the others, as they left to the restaurant, ignoring what they had been told. Except for someone. Although that someone had also gone with them. Don't worry, I left a clone here. For nothing I would miss a fight of my little angel. Besides, this is going to be fun. Broly answered as he divided himself in two and materialized a bag of popcorn to enjoy even more what was about to happen. A clone? And where did you get this from? Vidal asked as she felt her brain implode upon seeing two Brolys and that one of them could make food appear out of nowhere. The poor Vidal didn't understand what was happening as how something like this was possible. This had to set off all of Gohan's normal alarms and ask Broly to stop doing strange things that could cause mental problems in front of his flirt. However, it wasn't like that, since there was something that worried him even more. Wait, Broly. What is Bra going to do? Gohan asked, extremely worried about what that mischievous little demon might do to his crush's father. And meanwhile in the ring, the combat had already started. Good little one, come to me whenever you want, Mr. Satan said to Bra to attack him, since he was 1,000,000% sure of his victory. A victory in which he had planned to teach that girl 2 or 3 things about the art of fighting, as he did with Vidal when she was little. Okay sir, but first, I would like to ask you something. If you don't mind. Bra replied, pretending to be a shy and somewhat embarrassed girl as she awkwardly indicated to Mr. Satan to approach her to whisper something in his ear. And Mr. Satan didn't see why he shouldn't listen to a simple request from such a pure and innocent little lady like Bra. Oh, of course little girl, do you want an autograph? Don't worry about it However, when he got closer, Bra's expression changed. No. Everything in Bra changed, that wasn't the expression of a sweet and innocent girl. She became a demon. And the aura that she gave off too. What is this feeling? It is as if I were naked in the middle of a blizzard made of poison. Don't tell me that, thought Mr. Satan, who could barely move due to the sinister kin of Bra, which overturned all the frustration of the combat that a few minutes ago she couldn't carry out. And then Bra pounced on Mr. Satan, but not to hit him, but to hang around his neck like a koala to strangle him. Oh. It seems that Bra-chan has tricked Mr. Satan into pouncing on him and strangling him. What a clever girl, the announcer shouted, who described from his point of view what was happening in the ring. And that was also what the public perceived, which encouraged Bra despite the fact that in principle that was foul play. Ha. Well done little one. Cheer up, you can. Only you can beat Mr. Satan. Ha. Although not all the public believed that version. I'm afraid Bra is planning something, and no good. Well, as long as she doesn't commit a crime it doesn't matter, Bulma said, that once again tried not to worry too much about what was happening. Pay attention. Today, I haven't been able to lower my friend's pants in public, so I am very angry and I may not be able to control my strength with you, Bra said with a very intimidating tone of voice as she tightened and loosened her choke so that Mr. Satan understood that she was in full control. What the hell is this girl? This is not normal. She must be using some trick to make me shit with fear, Mr. Satan thought, that understood perfectly and very quickly that that girl was from another world. You are very weak compared to us, so much so that I would only need to squeeze a little to destroy your neck. Do you feel it right? You see I'm not kidding right? Do you already understand that I can beat the champion with a single blink? Bra said with an even more sinister and threatening tone than before as he squeezed Mr. Satan's neck harder and for a longer time, which not only found it difficult to breathe, but also to move any part of his body. This is not possible. How can a 6-year-old girl be so strong? This is not a trick. I'm drowning, Mr. Satan thought as he struggled between life and death and recognized that he could do nothing against that monster that inhabited the body of a girl. But that wouldn't benefit me much, while it would sink you. So, how about we make a deal that benefits both of us? Bra said in a kinder way than before as she loosened the strangulation so that her poor victim could breathe and even speak. And the first thing her poor victim could say was, "What?" And Bra obviously clarified his doubts, proposing with great kindness a win-win plan, even though some benefited more than others. Letting you beat me would be humiliating for me, so you think. You make it look as if I had won after giving you a slight blow to the face. That way I would keep winning, but everyone will think that you let yourself win to brighten the life of a little girl. So you would still be the champion. It's not a bad deal, is it? No, it is not. Brachan. Aw. Brasam, Mr. Satan replied, very happy to hear a proposal like this. Would that demonic girl really not just let him live? She would also let him remain the world champion. Fuck. Of course he would accept. Until a few seconds ago he believed that that little monster wanted to devour his soul. This deal was so much better. Well, you see, my family is very rich, but they control my finances to make me learn to value of money. And believe me, they have succeeded. The price to save your honor will be only 10 million zennies, 5 million less than the first prize in the adult category. As you can see, I am being very generous to you by letting you keep part of the prize that belongs to me. Don't you think? Bra said that if it weren't for her sinister expression and that she was strangling and extorting someone like a mobster, she might even seem like a charitable soul by giving such a generous offer. But at first Mr. Satan didn't find it charitable at all. WJATTT. 10 million. Oh. That is a no. Bra asked as she squeezed Mr. Stan's neck harder than ever. And after loosening the grip a bit. Aha. I agree. I agree. Mr. Satan replied, who magically changed his mind after fearing that his neck would be split in two. That was an answer that satisfied little Bra, who stopped squeezing the punished neck of his victim and told Stan what she had to do now that he had accepted. Good. I'll wait for you after the tournament. If you don't bring the money you will regret it, but for a short time, you already understand me. Now try to free yourself from my strangulation, I will let you. And so it happened, Mr. Satan got rid of Bra's strangulation and she separated from Mr. Satan, adopting a combat stance to continue facing the champion. The situation seemed dangerous, but Mr. Satan has managed to free himself from Bra's dangerous neck lock. Shouted the announcer, who broadcast to the entire stadium the logical version of this combat. You have been very smart, girl. You almost caught me. Wah 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 wah. But that wasn't necessary, it was going to give you an advantage from the beginning, said Mr. Satan, who despite having been about to die and being in front of an inhuman monster didn't interrupt his performance. So, the public overreacted, like always. Ha ha ha. It's a shame, Bra, it was a good move. You almost fool me, Mr. Satan. You're a great actor, it seemed like she was really strangling you. Come on, Bra, show what you are capable of. Mr. Satan, don't be too severe. And then he continued with the strategy of showing that he had allowed himself to be defeated. Oh. Mr. Satan has stuck out his face, as if to say. Hit me. Such poise. Said the commentator upon see that Mr. Satan was letting the Bra hit him in the face. And Bra, who wanted her money as soon as possible and to go with the adults, was quick and concise. Oki. Plash. Boom. Crash. Hey. Quick and concise with a powerful punch that took Mr. Stan out of the ring, as happened with Zingiber. A daunting image that was etched in the retinas of the entire audience, who momentarily gasped upon see that their great champion was stamped against the wall. Dad! Videl screamed, terrified and stunned to see that her father, the great champion, could have been killed by a 6-year-old girl. You devil! Why did you hit him so hard? Gohan yelled as he saw that one of his biggest worries became true. The first millionaire extortion of my little girl. MFFF. They grow so fast, Broly said, excited and proud as he wiped the tears from his 3 eyes. Tears of emotion that every father has dried at some point when verifying that his offspring were successfully advancing on the long and difficult path that life is. And luckily for Gohan and Bra too, Mr. Satan didn't die and continued with his performance. Wah! You got me. You sure are strong. This old man has lost. Said Mr. Satan as he pretended not to need to go to a hospital immediately. Ring out. What's this? Brachan, you have won. The locator yelled in a rhetorical way for the public to draw their own conclusions. Conclusions that seemed more than obvious to the inexperienced eye. Hey, he did that on purpose. That's our Satan. Nice going, world champion. Satan. Satan. However, those cheers didn't help to heal his pride and nearly broken jaw. Shit. Shit. This cannot be happening. Where did that demon in the form of a girl come from? What kind of monsters could have raised such an abomination? Mr. Satan thought as he retreated to the dressing room, trying to avoid everyone. And on the other hand, Bra was received by her little friends, Goten, Vegeta Jr. and Zingiber, who came down to congratulate her. Hey brah. Are you still angry? Zinjibur asked, who didn't want to be upset with her best friend for snitching, even though she deserved it. But fortunately for her and also for the universe, Broly's daughter wasn't spiteful, especially after a good payday. No, don't worry, I just got rich. We are going to eat something at the restaurant with the older men. I invite. Great. Celebrated Goten and Zinjibur, who loved to eat above all other things, especially if it was free. One moment. Wasn't the food free for the fighters? Vegeta Jr. asked upon detecting a certain contradiction in Bra's invitation. Yes, but I invite you to go, she replied while sticking out her tongue and winking. Later, not far from here. The food back here's so good. Goku said after gorging himself like a pig before a fight, something that no doctor or physical trainer would advise. You didn't eat anything. Are you on a diet of something? Gohan asked Videl, believing that she was the weird one. A comment by Gohan that the Casanova of the series couldn't ignore. Gohan, such things mustn't be asked a young lady. Your father never told you. Okay, I didn't say anything. By the way Broly, what are you doing here? This is an area only for participants, asked Vegeta, who despite not caring about the rules he wanted to see Broly as far away from him as possible. Don't worry, this body is only visible to you right now, others cannot see me, hear me, smell me, or touch me. Much less savoring me, Broly replied as he continued to accompany him. Gohan, are these things he says for real or not? Videl asked, which she no longer knew what to believe about Broly. Everything got very weird and confusing when that guy was around. I'm afraid so. But don't worry. If you hang out with us more you will get used to it, Gohan replied, giving the standard advice that was given to anyone who asked that about Broly. However, at that moment something stranger than Broly caught his attention. Well, maybe no more strange, but more rare to see for them. Since two people with a not very earthy appearance were standing in their way. And one of them. Hey, that guy's floating in mid-air, Videl said pointing to the mysterious short, lilac character, dressed in an unusual way and with a Mohican hairstyle that floated in front of them. Both were very suspicious and strange, but quite polite, since the first thing they did when they saw them was to introduce themselves. Good day. You are Son Goku-san, are you not? How did you know I was? Goku asked, that he didn't know who he was or that he knew him. It is true that he had saved the world on several occasions, but he didn't think that would make him famous. I have heard some rumors concerning you about some friend. I wanted to try my hand against you in a match. I too have managed to qualify in the preliminaries. If things go well, I hope we may end up competing against each other. Of course, I don't believe I have what it takes to win. I would just like to know how strong you are. By all means, if I could shake your hand. Answered the strange young man with lily skin replied, who despite appearing educated, humble and powerful, under that mask was hiding a rather informal and arrogant personality, at least up to this point compared to mere mortals. Ah, good to meet you, answered Goku without giving more importance to that speech, shaking hands with that strange boy. I see. As the rumors said, you truly are a pure soul, the young man said with satisfaction after verifying that the information about Goku that he had obtained was true and that thanks to that he could continue with his plan. However, as always, the gods laugh while mortals make plans. And when the gods make plans, the one who laughs the most is Broly. How long Useless-chan and Sidekick-chan? Do you also want to shake my hand? Said Broly, which undid his partial invisibility to appear in front of his dear friends whom he hadn't seen for a long time. And they were also very happy to see him. Broly. If by happy we mean shitting themselves. Broly. Kibito and Shin shouted with great terror upon seeing that suddenly and without warning one of the most dangerous beings in the universe appear in front of them. They were so scared that they even fell on their ass to the ground and hugged each other out of self-reflex to feel more secure. Yes, the same, Broly replied proudly without caring the least that two people looked at him as if he were a monster that was about to devour them. A situation that gave enough information to those who saw this picturesque scene. I'm not sure who they are. But there is no doubt that Broly traumatized them in the past. Ginger said, which she knew this firsthand, since she also went through a similar experience. Gohan, is this friend of yours dangerous? Videl whispered to Gohan, she had never seen someone so scared of another person and that's considering that she beat up villains in her spare time. No. Well, maybe yes, Gohan replied, not knowing exactly what to say to defend his teacher. What are you doing here? Kibito and Shin asked as they tried to regain some of their dignity, although it was being difficult for them. How cruel North Kai is, he tells you about Goku, his location, but he didn't say anything about me. I feel left out. Broly replied, pretending to be somewhat offended, although he was the one who prohibited North Kai from spreading information about him and his whereabouts to other annoying deities. Oh. Conceus to North Kai. Are you his friends? Goku asked, somewhat surprised. How did he know about all this? Kibito and Shin thought in panic as they saw that their entire plan was being ruined and that Broly was even more terrifying than before. No, Goku. I think it's more complicated than that, Piccolo answered, instinctively deducing that the relationship between them wasn't that simple. There was something about them, specifically Shin, that made him think that. What the hell is happening? Dad, do you know them? Bra asked, that she along with the other Saiyan children had gone to the cafeteria with the adults to gorge themselves and followed them to the tournament with some hidden intention. Yep. Bra, we adults have to talk. Take this money so that you and your friends can have fun, buy what you want within the facilities. But don't get into trouble. Or I will confiscate those 10 million that you are about to receive, and what is worse, I will tell your mother. Remember that I watch you closely, Broly said as he handed a purse to his daughter and warned her of the consequences of what she and her friends were thinking of doing. Oh. Okay, Dad. We will behave well. Don't tell Mom. Bra answered with some fear but at the same time gratitude with her dear father. He had given her a lot of money. What it? He has a daughter. Kibito and Shin shouted, surprised and terrified upon discovering that a little monster like the Broly of yesteryear was wild in the universe. It just cannot be true. Does the universe allow a being like him to reproduce? Kibito thought, who saw a potential threat in the established order if Broly's genes kept multiplying like normal humans. Normally when a being was excessively powerful, the universe limited its reproductive capacities to maintain a balance. But, in a few decades he had already had a daughter. This is a very worrying thing. So worrying that should be consulted with the Hakashin just in case. Yes, and very often in addition, but at the moment we don't want a second child at home. We are waiting for Bra to be a little older and calm to deal with another little troublemaker at home, Broly replied with some embarrassment and excitement as he explained in more detail his family plans. Fascinating and even cute information, but what impressed the poor Kais was another piece of information, which scared them more than before. What? Has he read my mind? Wait, he had that ability when he was little. Yes, I can read thoughts. I have learned many things in these years while you didn't do anything as usual. By the way. What are you doing here? Broly asked, even though he already knew perfectly well why they were here, either by reading their minds or having seen Dragon Ball Z. Oh shit, don't think about anything, don't think about anything. Well, nothing special. We just wanted to exercise a little. Shin replied, who was trying to blank his mind at the same time that he lied very badly. Too obvious lie for Broly, oh. So, the Supreme Kaioshin and his lackey have come to my planet and signed up for a martial arts tournament for mortals and want to meet a strong, pure-hearted guy to do nothing? What? Supreme Kaioshin, shouted the ex-god Piccolo, knowing that he was in front of his former supreme boss. Do you really expect me to believe that some ninis like you who don't move from their planet have come here to fight? Spit if you don't want me to interrogate you again like I did when I was a toddler. Said Broly, threatening the two gods to repeat what he did in Volume 3 to extract information from the two angel brothers and the Fat Cat Destroyer. A very traumatizing and humiliating event that the two useless gods didn't want to suffer a second time. And oh. No. Wait. We will tell you everything. Not again. Shin and Kibito pleaded between tears. What did you do to the Kaioshin-sama? Broly. Have you left not a single god of the universe without trauma? Can I know what we have done to you? Piccolo said and thought, outraged, astonished at Broly's infamy towards all existing deities. Although somewhat relieved to see that he had only played half-innocent jokes on him, they seemed not to have been so lucky. Gohan, this guy is definitely very dangerous. Videl said, that despite not fully understanding all the context, she began to see Broly as some kind of Yakuza from another dimension. I begin to believe that his stories as a child were no exaggeration. It's disturbing, the ones that had the opportunity to hear Broly's anecdotes on some occasion, especially when he fought with various gods who falsely accused him of some intergalactic crime. Everyone now believed in the veracity of that story by having the victims of that anecdote in front of them. Victims for whom Broly didn't have much compassion. Good, but sum it up. These people have to get balls out of a box, and I have to make sure that my daughter is not so interested in Vegeta Jr. and what is under his pants. What? Vegeta and Yam yelled upon hearing that last somewhat disturbing phrase that involved Broly's and Bulma daughter with their son. And Shin, seeing that would be impossible to hide the truth with Broly in front of him, said everything he knew in the way that Broly had asked him. Okay, I'll summarize it as best I can. We have come to this planet because millions of years ago an evil space wizard named Bibidi accidentally created a terrible monster. A Majin called Bu who only destroys, kills and devours everything around him. He was so powerful that he killed 4 Kaioshins at once. He was terrifying, so terrifying and powerful that Bibidi couldn't even control him, which is why he frequently sealed him in a sphere. Until one day he sent it to Earth, which was the next world to destroy, but fortunately I was able to kill Bibidi before he opened it again. When I killed him I believed that everything was over, that no one could revive Bu. But we recently found out that Bibidi had a son, Babidi, and he is now trying to revive Bu. And we have come to prevent him from achieving it. That. I mean it? Vidal asked Gohan, whispering in his ear. Certainly this was an absurd story. If she had listened to him before meeting Gohan and his friends, she would have thought this guy was crazy. But now she no longer knew what was absurd madness and what not. It seems so. Gohan replied with great seriousness, as he was aware that peace in the world could be at stake once more. Okay. With this you have shown us that you are weak because you cannot even kill a sealed monster. Also an idiot, since you left a monster that could destroy the universe in the same place where the bad guys were supposed to have left it, and unguarded in addition. And of course a careless incompetent for not investigating well if there was someone who could revive the monster of which he knew exactly its location due to your stupidity. And that you also don't know how to summarize. It has been a very long explanation, Broly said, making a good analysis of the situation that left Shin and all the gods of the franchise in a bad place, as usual. Yes. I have no excuses. Shin replied, lowering his head, since he knew that everything said was true. Okay, I think I got it, but... what are you doing here in a tournament instead of looking for that wizard? And why did you want to meet me? Goku asked, who didn't understand what he and this tournament had to do with the mission of the Kaioshin and his lackey. To revive Bu, Babidi needs a lot of energy. And it turns out that 2 of his lackeys, whom he has bewitched and manipulated with his evil magic, have entered the tournament with the intention of stealing the energy of the strongest fighters. Our intention was to let them absorb your energy and then follow them towards their base, where the sphere of Bu and Babidi should be. But it seems that this will be more difficult now, Shin replied, revealing the reason why they were here and his plan without fissures, sarcasm. So you need to locate Babidi's base and stop Bu from resurrecting. I will overlook the fact that your plan included gifting Bu our energy that could make him resuscitate more easily, because it is an emergency situation. We cannot let another monster of unknown origin threaten the peace of the earth again, Gohan said with great seriousness, which stopped trying to hide the truth to Vidal so as not to scare her and decided to take action. Right now, he wasn't the teenage Gohan eager to flirt, instead he is the serious and competent savior Gohan that he was years ago. Only that this time, he was better prepared. Even with a case of capsules, from which he took one out and threw it on the ground. Clash! And from that capsule a tablet appeared. What is this, Gohan? Almost everyone asked. And Gohan obviously answered them while operating his device to no waste time. After the events with Cell and company, I realized that it wasn't enough be stronger to keep the planet safe. So I created an extensive system of satellites to monitor both the exterior and the interior of the planet in case something ever invaded us from space or new cells appeared. Although I am surprised that my system hasn't been able to alter me that a magician from space has arrived here. It seems your tracking system doesn't take into account magic teleportation. You still have to learn, Gohan, said Broly, suppressing his urges to make magician jokes that he would only understand. I don't know if I can be more surprised than I am now, said Vidal, who had accepted until now that Gohan and all his friends were extremely strong and mystical. But she never imagined that her crush was also a technological genius with so many resources. Are these 2 guys Babidi's underlings? I intuited it because they are the most suspicious of all participants, excluding us, Gohan asked Shin and Kibito while he showed them on the tablet Yamu and Spopovich, who were waiting a few meters from here. Yes, they are, Kibito affirmed. Those extremely hormonal guys with an M on their heads were without a doubt the bad guys. Okay. I have them located. If I consult the recordings of my satellites, I will be able to see all their movements in the last days. In the same way that they had to return to their base to deliver the stolen energy, they also had to be at the base at some point to know where to deliver it. I just need. Aha! I think it is here. This place is incredibly suspicious, Gohan said with enthusiasm, which thanks to logical reasoning and technology had managed to locate a wizard's lair. That's how it is. That's Babidi, Shin said with great enthusiasm for the simple and risk-free way they had used to locate the great threat. How ugly, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, Yem said, highlighting the obvious when seeing the recording of when Babidi went outside his spaceship. Yes, he uses formidable magic, but he isn't particularly strong himself, Shin said to justify his danger despite his appearance and ki. Well, since we know where it is. Let's go, we have to solve this, said Gohan, who didn't want to leave this matter unresolved for another second. He wouldn't allow another tragedy to happen because of his group's lack of initiative. Then will you come to help? Shin asked, quite relieved that they were willing to help him do his fucking job for free. A wizard and a monster that kill Kaioshin easily. Sounds fun. Goku said enthusiastically. Finally strong new people to fight and have fun with. It will be a good appetizer before our fight, Kakarot, Vegeta said, who was practically thinking the same as his rival. Something that worried everyone who remembered the antecedents of these two too much. Take it seriously. Don't you remember what happened last time? Gohan yelled to remind them that because of their past negligence the world almost came to an end and that with that attitude they were about to do the same mistake. Yes, I'm sorry. Goku said somewhat regretful to his son, while Vegeta averted his gaze to hide his guilt. Wait, more or less I understand that something strange is happening, but... Are you going to go? And what about the tournament? Said Videl, who reminded everyone that they were still registered and that there was less than an hour to start. If so many participants were missing it would be a big problem, and as the champion's daughter this situation also worried her. Don't worry Videl, I promised you that I would participate and I will, so I will leave one of my bodies here for. Those henchmen of Babidi are still here, it would be dangerous not to pay attention to them, said Gohan, who divided his body in two, one with 80% of his power and the other with 20% just in case. And since he was in crisis mode he didn't realize he had done something highly shocking in front of Videl. I withdraw what I said. I can still be surprised. Videl said with her eyes and mouth wide open as he re-evaluated her opinion about Gohan. However, Gohan had a good idea. In this way it would be possible to have fun in the tournament and against the magician. And Goku loved the idea of dividing part of his power, then me too. But not everyone thought the same, such as Vegeta, don't even dream about it, I want to fight you with everything we have, a fight between portions of power is not worth. Besides, later we could lose against one of them. I would enjoy it, Piccolo and Krillin said, who have dreamed of defeating these Saiyans many times. Guys. You can fight whenever you want later, now the important thing is what Gohan said. There is a world to save. But don't worry, the great Broly will help you this time, said Broly, who was unexpectedly too excited to help this time. Something that surprised, excited and worried everyone. Wahat? Is it really going to help? Really help? Krillin asked, that he couldn't believe what was hearing. Broly had never actively helped until now since the elimination of Frieza and his father. He had only manipulated or influenced them so that they would fight better as if they were his henchmen. Would he once again use his tremendous power to eliminate the threat? Why? Yes, I haven't fought against things for a long time. Also, I don't trust you. I promised my little girl that I would take her to the amusement park if she won. If there is a monster that starts destroying things, it may destroy the park and make my daughter sad. I can't allow that. Broly said, showing that he was somewhat a great daddy. Wow. He loves his daughter very much, Kibito and Shin thought. It was difficult for them to imagine the terrifying child that tormented them years ago being a father and taking care of other living beings. But even though this was good news, Shin was still worrying about the whole matter, especially if Broly got involved. Wait Broly, I know you're very strong but... Babidi can control certain types of people and... But Broly didn't care at all about Kaioshin's poor excuses, che. There is no discussion. Those who want to come with me to the lair of the bad guys, raise your hand. And obediently Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo and Krillin raised their hand. Okay, so we go. If we do it quickly, we may even have time to come back before the tournament starts. I have placed my bets and I would need you all to be present, Broly said before snapping his fingers. So that was the reason for his strange participation in this mission, everyone thought before being teleported. FIU. They have disappeared. Videl stammered, amazed once more that day. Anyway, it's my turn to bring the money home again. Now I understand Chi-Chi. I hope Vegeta Jr. learns from Gohan. Said Yam, since she had children she put aside her most irresponsible side, sometimes, and only to fight, sometimes for money. Yes. I understand you. Said C-18, the most materialistic woman on this show by far, the others were millionaires, she wasn't. No, you don't understand me, yours works of his own free will and not because you force him to be financially responsible, Yam protested, who like Chi-Chi suffered the consequences of marrying a pure scion who only thought about fighting and training. Rashi-chan, why haven't you gone with the other boys to play? Does the idea of me winning the same title as you 100 years ago bothers you so much? Ginger said to her husband with obvious ulterior motives. No thanks, I leave the monsters to my students. And it wasn't so long ago that I won it for the last time. What bothers me is not the idea that you win the same title as me, it's that you will be constantly reminding me that. Rashi replied, who couldn't allow Ginger to win the same as him. If she also had the same title of what impressive anecdote, what he could boast in front of his daughter that her mother didn't. Videl-san, are we going inside? Gohan said to Videl, who was still dumbfounded looking at a fixed point, reflecting and trying to analyze everything that had happened so far. Yes. I guess so. But after the tournament we have to talk seriously. About you, your family and your friends, especially about the guy with 3 eyes. Videl said very seriously as she walked with Gohan into the establishment. At that moment, in the middle of the open field where important fights always occur, Babidi opened the door. Pum. Followed by a sound similar to that of a nuclear explosion that knocked down a door and everything around it, and caused a small earthquake. What? What has that been? What's going on? Shouted Babidi, scared by that commotion.
If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kaioshin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.